Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crucial Conversations about Cognitive Diversity, brought to you by Bridges 2E Media and the 2E Centre for Research and Professional Development. My name is Maria Kennedy, and I have the distinct pleasure of being your host today. I'm a mom, educator, and I consider myself a change maker who has had the pleasure of working globally with an array of different students and their families. I now live in sunny California and work at Bridges Academy. But it was during my amazing traveling that I got connected to today's guests. They all work with SENG, so they're supporting the emotional needs of our gifted students as well as our gifted 2E students. And I'm superbly excited to be able to introduce them to you. So we have Lin, we have Gail Bentley, and we have Adam Langingham. They're not only working to improve the access for our gifted students, but they're also accomplished authors. And today, they're going to be discussing with us the value of reading with children. I'm sure you'll all agree that reading, the earlier you start it, can actually make a difference. But today, they're also going to help us unpack how to have challenging conversations with our children and how we can use reading as a tool to support us. So without further ado, let's crack on. So Lin, please turn on your camera and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. I'm Lin, and I am a parent of two diverse children. Both of them are profoundly gifted, and I have one that's also a twice exceptional individual. They are teenagers, so a little bit further along the journey, perhaps as some of our guests here today, either joining us live or watching this video. My family is based in Dallas, Texas, and I do travel back and forth between sunny Los Angeles, California, and Dallas, Texas. While I'm in sunny Los Angeles, I work for Bridges Graduate School, and I have Gail, who is a doctoral candidate at Bridges Graduate School, and then Adam is a certificate student at Bridges Graduate School. So you can see the three of us are a great trio. We enjoy collaborating with each other, and we have a lot of common interests. And one of the common interests we have coming to the table with different perspectives is really, we want to make lives better for all individuals, not just twice exceptional or gifted individuals, but really I think there are a lot of ways that we can make lives better for everyone through collaborative conversations, just as what we're going to be having, where we come to the table with different perspectives, and yet we're united with the same goals. So I'm happy to really, be here. Other than that, I am currently an MBA student at UCLA. So my special interest, amongst many, is really connecting the transition between education and the workplace. And, the other part of my passion, which is why I'm here today, is really thinking about resources that is taking a more proactive approach towards building resilience, nurturing our strengths, practicing, having difficult conversations early. So those are two very, very different pieces, but I think critical. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. See how blessed we are. Lin is an absolute gift, and resources. I know as parents, we're constantly searching for resources. So it is a wonderful pleasure for us to have you. So Gail, would you mind turning on your camera, please, and introducing yourself?
Hi, thank you so much, Maria, for having us on here. It's very exciting to get to speak with your audience. I come to you, as Lynn mentioned, I'm a doctoral candidate, so hopefully we'll be finishing my degree in the next couple of months at Bridges Graduate School. My emphasis is on the 2E parent experience and how I put together an education program to try to make this journey a little bit easier. I have 3 almost teenage boys, 18, 15, and 12. All 3 are PG or neurodivergent. So clearly you'd have to go get a doctorate if you had 3 children to work with so that I can keep up with them. I also have been a school teacher in the public schools, and I'm back there again. So this is my 24th year of teaching. And then I've also opened a resource center called the Bentley Center, and it's just a place where parents can meet with me, and we can come up with resources that are particularly useful for your child. And then I've written this book with Lynn and worked with Adam on his books as well. So thank you again, Maria. Really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much. You know, it's so much easier, I think, when people already have a lived experience and then can share, because you bring so much wealth of knowledge to the table. And then the fact that you're studying just to make it better for all of us. So thank you so much. And last but by no means least, the amazing Adam Langingham. Please turn on your camera, Adam, and introduce yourself.
Hi, Maria and everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I just have to say, I didn't mention this earlier, but my grandmother was from Nottingham, England, so I could listen to you talk all day, Maria. So I am coming to you guys from sunny Arizona. And I've been here my whole life and in the school system, either in it or supporting it. So I was a teacher for how many years? 15 years or so. I actually went to school to be a high school history teacher. Never made it. Went to middle school, taught elementary, moved into gifted. So I've taught all grade levels, kindergarten through 8th grade, gifted, and then pull out at many grade levels. So I've come to it from that teacher's perspective and working with these kids, and being Arizona, we all know the reputation for Arizona school system. So it's called You Be Innovative and Think Outside the Box, because there's no money. So it's just, that's the facts out here. I was then asked to move into administration, and I worked at the district level for my prior school district for 7 years as a manager of gifted and advanced academics. So I helped set up and run programs for 43 schools. Some of the last programs and services I really expanded to help and build were gifted preschool, as well as true gifted high school programs that weren't just AP honors, but let's do something innovative and, have those social emotional supports and things that, at the high school level can tend to disappear for some reason. So that's kind of my passion. Working with so many families in such a big system, the kind of the people that really floated to the top that needed my help were those parents of twice exceptional kids. So trying to find supports and services for them, it can be quite complicated and difficult, especially in a strapped school system. So that's kind of my background. I left my job after 21 years in that school system 2 summers ago. I wrote a book and travel and do consulting, and I have a book company, Bright Child Books, where I collaborate with great authors and create books or procure great books that I find in my travels to support parents and teachers. So I've done that for the last couple of years, and I just this February, so last month, opened a gifted learning center here in Arizona. So we support gifted 2E or just curious kids and supplement their school day with engaging, creative, social emotional supports programs. We're opening a micro school this fall for gifted twice exceptional kids. And again, just trying to be out there to support this community. I'm also president of SANG, so I get to work with Danielle and Lynn on that as well. So busy, but all supporting gifted learners and their families.
My goodness. Adam, thank you so much. And just thank you so much for what you're doing for for our community. You know, it was really funny that you said that strapped, struggling school district. What never ceases to amaze me is whether they're strapped or not, there never seems to be enough money that they make available to meet the needs of our children. They seem to be that forgotten minority. I don't know, maybe. Sometimes I wonder if maybe because we're just not highlighting them, that there's actually a whole majority of children who are just missing out. But today, without further ado, let's kind of jump in. Now, I know that you want to kickstart our session by sharing something with us. And obviously, I'm a little biased, and I'm not going to tell people why. But we'll see whether or not they can pick that up. So, Lynn, would you like to tell us about what we're going to start with, please?
Sure, let me share my screen first. So that will be the first challenge. Make sure I can do that. Okay, all right. Are you all watching screen? All right. So that's our topic for today. We want to kick it off with a little video.
An Animal School, a tale of gifts. Once upon a time, a school was formed for animals to learn skills needed in our future world. Swimming, flying, climbing, and running were chosen as the subject areas. To be fair, all students were to participate in 3 out of the 4 areas and be at least average in the subjects they chose. Gariel was an excellent swimmer, an average runner, and a very poor climber. Gariel had to stop working on swim moves, which Gariel enjoyed doing, in order to spend more time on learning to climb. At the end of the school year, Gariel managed to get average grades, as it was the goal at school. Everyone thought Gariel was doing just fine. However, Gariel was worried about losing an edge in swimming. Sugar Glider Possum was excellent at flying, leaping and gliding from treetops. However, Eagle, the instructor, said the right way of flying was from the ground up. Sugar Glider Possum spent so much time practicing ground takeoffs. Sugar Glider Possum was too exhausted to do anything else. At the end of the school year, Sugar Glider Possum had below average grades and was labelled a failure at school. Margay, the arboreal cat, started as a top and popular student. Other animals welcomed Margay, as Margay looked like the leopards already at school. Margay soon became bored with classes, but still enjoyed the company of other students. Margay was labelled a troublemaker. for having a different way to complete tasks, and having different interests from the leopards. Margay often spent time in detention and was told to be more like the leopards. By the end of the year, Margay earned good grades as it was far too easy. Okapi was a new student from a faraway land. No one had ever met an animal like Okapi. As Okapi looked familiar, and yet not. The ponies, zebras, and other animals often made fun of Okapi. Even though Okapi seemed fine, Okapi's grades suffered from being picked on and from the social isolation. For peacock mantis shrimp, who lived in the water, running, climbing, swimming and flying were all the same. Peacock mantis shrimp's great passion was boxing. But the subject was not taught at the animal school. Peacock mantis shrimp dropped out before the end of the year. With the encouragement of those that believed in peacock mantis shrimp's passions and gifts outside of the school, peacock mantis shrimp found joy. Peacock mantis shrimp practiced and ended up having one of the fastest and most powerful punches in the animal kingdom. Bumblebee was the biggest problem of all. Bumblebee was an animal the school could not handle. "What are we going to do with Bumblebee?" said the teachers and classmates. "We just don't understand. How can Bumblebee learn to fly? Bumblebee's wings are too small for such a body size." Bumblebee did not pay attention to the others' words, and Bumblebee continued practicing. Over time, Bumblebee began to fly, just like Bumblebee's ancestors. In the end, the school worked for some animals, but not for others. How can we make sure our schools are helping all students grow? Our children are precious. Just like snowflakes, similar yet unique, possessing different gifts, interests, and personalities. It is our job to find opportunities for gifts and interests to shine and grow. When we nurture diversity, strengths, and gifts, our children will be best prepared to flourish in a future world we have yet to encounter. Our seeds planted will help them to grow.
Well, obviously, I love that. I'm biased, though, of course.
Well, your voice just makes it, Maria. So
Yeah, thank you. So today, then, thank you so much. Today, we're talking about young children. Why is that?
Gail, you want to share?
well, in my 24 years, I've taught preschool students through high school students and everything in between. And Lynn and I were having a lot of conversations now that our own personal children were teenagers that, it really would be helpful to address some of these, we call them tricky topics, some of these tricky topics with children when they're young. They're a little more moldable. They haven't become entrenched in feelings of anxiety, right? We can see little 3-year-olds who are maybe a little more worried than you might expect. And that's the time when we can read read books to them and then talk about the issues through the characters, which we think is really valuable for young kids. I've worked in high school with 15-year-olds who are just almost paralyzed in, they don't want to go to school or they don't want to take a test or. So really, let's use that time. Let's leverage that time that we probably already spend with our little ones reading and use the book that Lynn and I wrote, using picture books to help little ones learn about themselves. We've curated a list of 42 books and divided them into topics of just things that you might see even when they're little, because we think that's an easier time to kind of start talking about these things.
That's wonderful.
Well, and I would add that, gifted kids, even at young ages, they are soaking things up, whether it's, the environment, how people are treated. They're very sensitive, especially to maybe injustice or those kinds of things that are going on. And we need to address that. These kids need to go through that thought process and think about it. And picture books are just an amazing way to teach kind of those life lessons and give examples and, characters that they can relate to and do it kind of in a fun way. Because, children are absorbing these things and taking it in, but especially those gifted kids at a younger age than many adults realize.
Yeah. So I would share that my perspective from human development is that imagine a piece of paper. If we crease a piece of paper and then we try to kind of like fix it or uncrease it, there's always still creases. So taking a more proactive approach and really trying to think very intentionally, carefully, and strategically about, leveraging picture books and and really encouraging people who maybe are already have a habit of reading in the classrooms. There's typically a reading time. How can we better leverage activities that are already happening to really maximize the limited time we have to make impact? So, by being strategic and careful and thoughtful about selecting picture books, you can use that as a safe way to discuss like tricky topics, like Gail said, that either your child or your students may experience. And I think a good way to talk about it would be like, oh, what do you think the mantis shrimp is thinking? And then people can, talk about it and not sort of maybe feel like the students may feel like, oh, they're talking about me. It's like, oh no, I don't want to talk about myself. And through those conversations, we get a glimpse of sort of what's going on, with our students and our own children. So those are sort of one big reason why we have curated. So I think I saw an information in there. That video is a freely developed resource that's free to everyone. We encourage everyone. It's really, we decided to write the book, well, publish the book after we developed the video, just so for anyone that prefers like a book format, so that you have some pages to talk about, you can pause, like point out different things. The video is a free resource that anyone is welcome to use. We just ask for the attribution and the credit that this is, produced by, whatever it is. So that is available. I'll send a link in the chat later on too for people to do that. Yeah.
There you go, because that was, how do we obtain the video?
So it's a free video on YouTube. So
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Just put in an animal tail and it will come up.
Well, Lynn will pop the direct
Yeah, I will
link
do that.
because that is, I mean, you can type in, there is so many
That's 5 trillion.
right? And then you've got to curate them and go through them and check them all out. And I know my brain.
I will put in the link.
Right. So on that particular note, right? So you've mentioned that picture books are easy. They're a great way to start those conversations, right? And one of the things that you talked about strategic and going through these curated resources. Okay, listen, I mean, I don't have time to curate resources. More importantly, I wouldn't know where to start to curate resources. So what do I do? Where are these resources? Help me out.
Well, you start by becoming friends with librarians. No, that's, there actually are online lots of lists of recommended books on different topics. And so I, went through those lists and talked to librarians and look through, to choose these 42 different books, and then to kind of categorize them. There's a section on perfectionism. I mean, you can see little ones who are tending in that direction. And, there are cute books that show characters and, who are acting very perfectionistic and can't make a mistake. And it's non-threatening for the child to be sitting with the parent and looking at this book and talking about, little Betty or whatever, who can't make a mistake. Again, they don't think you're talking about them maybe, but then later, they kind of can start to think about it. So it's a non-threatening way, I guess, of thinking about these things. I want to just put a little plug in there. As I was doing this, I was, buying a lot of books, and I thought, books can be expensive. You're not sure what you're getting before you buy them. And on YouTube, nearly every picture book I've ever looked for is a read aloud on YouTube. And so that's a really great way. So you just put in the title of the book and then the read aloud. And that's a great way to just check the book out to see if it's something your child would be interested in. So I don't think and actually novels too. So I've used Charlotte's Web and some other, novels with kids. So anyway, that's just a little tip that I thought was really useful to make sure you want these books. I mean, you're looking at them and you're deciding, oh, that's a great book for my child. Then you go buy it.
Well, and when you're trying to help your child specific, like with its perfectionism or these different tendencies, it's so much nicer to, when they're going through a difficult time or struggling with that tendency, well, remember back to when this character was going through something similar. What did he or she do? Is that something maybe you could use to help you get through it? And giving those kind of specific examples in a fun way with different characters, I mean, that's very powerful to help the child.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so now you mentioned going to the library, you mentioned picture books, and then you also mentioned sections in a book. Now, we might have missed that. Can you tell us which book you're talking about and how we can get it?
Should I go ahead? Okay, yes, behind Maria's, oh goodness. Okay, it was back there. The one that I was referring to, there we go. Using picture books to help little ones learn about themselves. And so that's divided up by chapter on different topics that you may notice in your young children. It's filled with graphics. It's written in bigger font to make it, we just said, you know what? Parents do not have time to read a treatise on this. Let's make this very accessible, easy to read, cute to look at. But as we said, we have 42 different books. And so the different sections are the importance of reading. And we go beyond just the academic importance because we pretty much all know that reason. But now moving into the social and emotional learning that can take place and the bond that you're creating with your child as you sit together and read over the years. And then there are different topics, including empathy, helping your child develop empathy, helping your child accept differences in themselves and others. Even young children notice these differences. So now this gives an opportunity for you to talk about them, again, in a non-threatening way. Perfectionism and worry, and a couple of other topics as well. But that's how it's divided up. And then the entire book is research-based. So there's lots and lots of citations for you to look at and read the research.
Yeah. So, and then in addition to that, what we have noticed is that students with different cultural backgrounds, they differ. Oftentimes, when you're looking at books that have illustrations or pictures of little children that don't look like you, they have a harder time relating to that because they feel it's a feeling subjectively that, oh, well, maybe that's, I don't look like that. So perhaps whatever stories they're talking about may not be relevant to me. So some of the things that, we're starting to think about would be the reason why we chose animal school is to sort of maybe help separate out a more complicated, complex thing. There's no way for us to represent all different cultural phenomena in terms of human beings. So we strategically chose animal school so that we can use that as a way to think about how we're all different, how we really value each different animals. They bring richness to our lives, just as every single one of us is different. So these are some strategies we use. In the video, you could see too, on top of that, we're putting in, we're using specific fonts, just really trying to be mindful and thinking about perhaps there are different people may gravitate to different ways of utilizing the same resource. We're in the process, the three of us, of making the animal school a workbook journal type resource where we do thinking, we give you little prompts to think about, each of the scenarios that we talked about and really allow you to think about it, whether it's the educator or the student, and perhaps have a conversation with other peers. And I think through that exchange of our different impressions and how we feel about it, I think that we can come to a better sort of understanding of each other and kind of see how we can find common ground. So we're really excited about this this new workbook that we are in the process of finishing up on there.
Wonderful. That's phenomenal. I had a question pop up in the chat, so I'll just do that before I lose it. My kids started my kids started to read with Pokemon. Do you advise starting with high interest books and graphic novels? My kids needed photos with the words.
Yeah, I think any way to really start that interest, I think that would be great.
Finding your child's interests is highly invaluable. Even as a teacher, when you're working with gifted kids, it's hooking them on what are they interested in and how can I turn it into something where I need to teach them something that is important to them. So anytime you can start with an interest, if it's Pokemon or the Titanic or dinosaurs or whatever that topic is, if that's the lead in, then run with it. Absolutely.
And there's probably been a book written about it. So there's so many out in the world, just have to look a little bit.
I remember we've had a Lego brick Shakespeare series. So literally the whole Shakespeare is written with Lego characters. It's thicker because you have more graphics, but the content, the level is still the same. So I think we would want to really encourage parents and caretakers and also, educators to sort of like look beyond the surface level things. Just because a book has tons of words, if that's not the way that would entice and encourage certain students and children to engage, perhaps something more visual would engage, like, what's wrong? I mean, it's perfectly fine, and probably you can have a lot more in-depth conversation beyond the words, around all the graphics that, I remember with a whole ton of like cartoon series. Obviously, we want to make sure that it's high quality of like physics topics, like really, in-depth topics that's written in graphic novel style. I think because being allowing more choices.
Choices, and a lot of kids are visual learners. A lot. I can't say majority of kids are, but a huge percentage of kids are visual. So if that helps them connect, then absolutely use that.
I
And
actually have I'm sorry.
No, go
Can I
ahead.
pop in one more comment? I have an example. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because we have these background. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Chris Grimley's Frankenstein. So this is 8th grade. This is not little kid stuff. So, but 8th graders are reading it at my school and I'm helping them with a project on it. But it is a graphic novel, but it is still Mary Shelley's words. So it's the original words and then illustrated. And it really helps make that accessible because it's, it's old English that, it's pretty high level English that's used, but the kids really, really enjoy it. They're really liking it. So just an example for older kids.
Yeah.
I think you just read my mind, Gail, because I literally was about to ask whether or not you'd use picture books with older children and whether or not that was doable. And there you have it. And it's so funny because my group with the library literally just finished reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So we finished on Tuesday together. So that's kind of cool. So, but the book with the 42 resources, is that though predominantly aimed at young children?
Well,
Yes, those are picture books. Those are younger.
Yeah, I think that when we say aimed at young children, the reason why we called it aimed at young children is because we're using picture books. The concepts in there, I think, are timeless. So it's not like, oh, if you're older then you can't. It really depends on what would be, how can we have a safe conversation around difficult topics. I think more visual and less wordy books sometimes allow more of an open-ended conversation. And with older children, that may be what they also need in order to be able to have a dialogue about like, what are you feeling? Versus sort of reading something that's really telling you, like step by step what's happening on there. So picture books, I would say, like our animal school, it sounds simple, but if you go and dissect what our topic is, even though we're using really simple language throughout the whole video, what we're trying to talk about involves a lot of different topics that are way beyond, for little kids or anything like that. They are really, I think, lifespan long conversations that adults could have around this, video on there.
And absolutely. And the older kids may be like, oh, those books are for little kids, but they still enjoy reading these books. And if you're doing it in a way to, let's just get this concept quickly out there. We don't need to read a novel to talk about this. We only have so much time, but this is a way for me to introduce this topic in a safe, kiddie way, and then get them into thinking at that higher level, and then having that discussions and tying it in. Like I was, as an English teacher, is always tie it into writing and, get you thinking and flowing and start taking it from different perspectives and those kinds of things. It's an easy tool that's very powerful to, again, focus on beyond what this little book is. What is that message?
Yeah. I like one assignment that my son, who's in 10th grade now, so he's in high school, so he's doing technical writing or something like that. So whatever he wrote, he had to do like a peer feedback. And then he was told, all right, that's great. Can you now adapt your presentation to options? Either you're going to talk to college professors, okay, same topic, whatever he was doing, or that's his choice, or now you're going to give a lecture to 5-year-olds, or like, and then you have to figure out a way, right? And that's what we're talking about. These picture books is that conduit to scale up and down the same topic, right? The same, same level of importance, but in different ways. So I thought that was really great ways, because we want to be able to reach different age groups and audiences. And how do we do that and explain the same concepts, same ideas, same struggles, but in a way that's relevant depending on who we're talking to. So those are super interesting.
It's a medium to reduce the barriers to entry to what you're trying to teach them. You're lessening the complexity of accessing the information, but allowing that thinking and complex thinking to come out of it, regardless of their level.
Oh, gosh. Nuggets, mic drop. Oh my gosh. Whoa, like amazing. I'm going, oh yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. That's phenomenal. However, suppose I'm just a regular parent. Suppose I lack the confidence to go into those difficult conversations and really unpack them. Lin, you mentioned things like asking the kids what they think. So is that really the dive in, or is there other verbiage that parents should really remember when they're looking at these books to be using? Is there a cheat sheet?
In our book, if you look at, which is kind of far behind you, at the end of every chapter, we give like a couple of, sort of, if you don't have time, or in the moment, you're like, what did the book say again? I don't remember what it says. We give at the end of each chapter, we give like the little strategies and suggestions.
Also, there it is. This might be a great time, Lynn, to show the book that we brought. So we actually did bring one of the read alouds. I would have read it, but it's easier for you to see it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But this will show you what we're talking about, and then we can think about ways you could use this little book. So what Lynn is putting on there is is called The Big Umbrella. And it's very, very simple. I mean, and the pictures are extremely endearing. So you could read it to a very young child, but the message you could talk about for years. So take a look at this first, and then you'll see what we mean. And it's just a little 2-minute video.
Today we are reading The Big Umbrella by Amy June Bates. Today's book is a book about friendship, inclusiveness, and shelter from the rain. This red umbrella likes to help, likes to give people shelter, and likes bringing people together. By the front door, there is an umbrella. It is big. It is a big, friendly umbrella. It likes to help. It likes to spread its arms wide. It loves to give shelter. It loves to gather people in. It doesn't matter if you are tall or hairy or plaid. It doesn't matter how many legs you have. Some people worry that there won't be enough room under the big umbrella. But the amazing thing is, there is. There is always room.
Wow.
Let's remember there's always enough room under the umbrella and in our hearts for all. Thank you for reading with me. Come back soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Books with Blue.
I mean, it's very simple. I mean, the words are simple. There aren't very many words on a page. The drawings are pretty simple, but to me, very endearing. And then the message, it's just so endearing to me. I mean, the way the umbrella's drawn, and then the umbrella looks like arms, and then, it's so inclusive. And then even that last page, I feel like you could do a whole class project on looking at the last page and seeing all the different things people are doing and ways they look, and,
I guess the shout out would be back to Maria's question. If I'm a parent and I'm like, I'm not sure and I don't want to mess it up, just reading and being very intentional what books you're going to engage with your child, I think it's going to reinforce, certain messaging that we're giving. So don't feel any pressure that you have to like ask, almost like an educator or teacher, like, no, let's be quizzed about this and that. Really just reading about it. If there are no, if your child doesn't ask anything, that's great. Or you could go, this is so interesting. You could share your thoughts about that. And then it's an invitation, right? You don't have to always be like, well, tell me what you think, Johnny. Some kids do not. My son would just be like, nothing, mom, even if he has something. However, sometimes when we're reading it, he may share, or, if I'm interested, I would share and then not really have like that expectation that you have to take it seriously. And sometimes for my son, he is a very deep and slow thinker. 3 weeks later, he will ask me something about that book. So again, you may know your child, you know your child better. What I've known is sort of my job is to really expose him to certain ideas and experiences I would like him to consider. And then oftentimes I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, that was like 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, but that's my son. And, it's, it may take time for all these thoughts to maybe coagulate, to kind of, cook in there, for them to think about it. So really don't feel any pressure that it needs to be like, like you have to get something out of it. You are already doing something positive when we are intentional in the types of books that we choose to consume with our children.
And I would jump in and say, as long as you're reading with your child and having that relationship and those discussions, I mean, that is a win, even if it's not the best book. I mean, we have, if you're worried about the best book, we have Google, we've got YouTube. You can go out and find things. My child needs, I'd like to, he or she said something about someone who was different, and I think I need to address that, or whatever, perfectionism, or any of these topics. We can find lots of books, and maybe you don't even fully agree with the book, but let's talk about it. It's planting seeds, planting those opportunities to, you never know what's sinking in, what they might take in, what they might reflect on, and having that opportunity to kind of bond and talk with your child over simple books. If nothing else, just grab a book. That's important, to have that relationship. And if you can try to guide it into something that helps them work through an issue, problem, or concern, that's great. So for the question, I would be just grab a book, Google, find something. There's tons of books and resources out there. You don't have to be the expert educator and, fine tune and find this exact book. They're short little books. If you're reading a book every night, go to the library. It doesn't cost you anything. Just find a cute book here or there. It shouldn't be stressful. Just the act of reading alone should help. And if you can find certain books that help you along the way, that's totally doable.
Thank you both. I love that. Reading shouldn't be stressful. Just grab a book, just do it, get on with it. I think one of the important takeaways for me was that don't keep quizzing, because you take away from the enjoyment of that time spent with your child. So I love that thought. Share your thoughts, because maybe your thoughts are valuable, or just read the book because you just read the book. And then I love that. Lynn, maybe 4 weeks later, your kid will ask you something about it, and it's okay. And if they don't ask anything about it, it's still okay, right? Just read. I think that is definitely something that we've forgotten about, because we're all so busy. So I know we can Google and we can YouTube, and I know there are people that like to read on screens. But I notice that you talk about getting the book. So is getting the book and sitting with your child with the book better than watching the book? So I know, because you mentioned we could go on and Google and there's the read alouds, but is it better if you read it, or is it okay for you to just sit together and watch somebody else read it?
It's that quality time. So, I mean, I would argue, yes, you want the book, you want to read it, you want to instill the importance of books. But if your entry point is watching a cute little YouTube video each evening, you do what you got to do. You can still have a great lesson and mix it up. So, like Lynn and Gail's book is amazing. They've curated great topics and things. That's ideal. Find them. But I mean, you think about children's books and things, they all have messages and different things. I've never found anywhere I was like, that's just awful. It might be like, it was okay, not a home run, but you're still spending that time, building that relationship, having those discussions, and videos can be just as fine too. So do what works for your kiddo.
Yeah.
And can I bring up a point that is in the book that we haven't talked about, and that is, it's okay if your child is older and still wants to be read to. And that's not an indication that they can't read for themselves or that they don't want to read for themselves, but that's the connection we've been talking about. That's the relationship. My youngest, who's 12, he's profoundly gifted. He does have dyslexia, but he loves to read. He can read himself, obviously. But he and I read Wings of Fire. He just told me last night we're on the 5th novel. We've read. So we've been doing this for several years. So every night we read a chapter, but he wants me to read it to him. And he said, we're going to do this till we go to college. I want you to hear all 15 books. Like, okay. And he'd already read them all. He wants to discuss all the different characters and the plot line, and he wants to spend time with me. So, how can I say no to that? My other two older ones, they read on their own. They don't want to do that with me, but my youngest still does, and so that's what we do.
Like reading, it could be more than just the reading, right? Could be.
I'm sure it's more than that. He doesn't need to just have, he already knows the story.
For some kids, that's how they want to seek spending time with you through books, whether they can read it or not. It serves more than the reading itself.
It's not I just want to spend time with you. Here's not a distraction or a deflection, but it's, we're going to read. But, it's hard for teens and, middle school age kids to say, I love you, Mom, or I want to spend time with you. But, we could read a book. That's great. Or watch a YouTube video.
I can't believe that our hour is almost run out, but I got a couple more questions. So, question 1, what age should we start? Because I read to my bump when he was a bump in my belly, and he had a name, which we then didn't give him because we thought he was a girl. And so he popped out as a he instead of the she that we thought we were having. So I read to the bump, but is there a time by which we should be reading to our children?
I think now, whenever now, this time, right? If you haven't done it, start now. And if you're already doing it, you're already doing it. And for some, perhaps you were doing it more before and sort of maybe feel like, maybe, do we need it or not? I would say the time is always now. So when you're wondering, it will be now, you know, in any way. You know, especially if you spend a lot of time in the car with your child, you could do an audible, you know, type of thing, like an audio version of it. I do see a question in the chat. Someone was asking, Genevieve was asking if SANG has a reading list for middle schoolers. That is a great question. We do not have that.
We
You know,
should have that.
I know. So
That's a
now,
great idea.
yeah,
Wings of Fire would go on there, by the way.
yeah, you have given us, you know, sort of like great things in terms of like what would our community want? I think that would be really helpful. Our main focus is on social emotional aspects of the gifted experience. So I think having a list of books that, you know, we think is in line with our mission and vision and values would be lovely. So thank you for giving us that thought and this other idea to think about. I think that will be very valuable.
And I'll throw in just one book that I read with my students for years. I couldn't keep enough copies, regardless from 2nd grade up to 6th grade. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. And yes, I do sell it, but you can find it anywhere. The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane is one of the best books to come across. My kids would read it over and over and over again. And it just, they can relate to this toy doll bunny and his bad attitude and the things that happen to him. And if you don't cry at the end, oh my gosh, but they love it. And the life lessons and things, it's just a phenomenal book, any age, phenomenal.
I remember at TAGT when we were doing our booth, that book sold out.
Oh,
Right.
I love it.
I love that. Can you type that title in the chat so that we have it? And just before we start to wrap up.
Sorry, I'm just going to show this a visual of the 3 books that we currently have that's, you know, more targeted. We have more books than that, but these 3 books are targeted to young children. I mean, all children, but definitely young children, if that's what you're looking for. There's our email contact. You can find the book on Amazon, GHF Press, Bright Child, or feel free to reach out to us and we can send you the direct link if that's easier too.
Cool. So just before we go, there's a chance for you to win a copy of Using Picture Books to Help Little Ones. So I'm going to launch today's question. To win today's book, all I need you to do is type in the title of the last book you read with your child or children. So what is the title of the last book you read with your child or children? And then as per usual, we will I'll do a drawing from anybody that answers. So I'm going to leave that up for a few minutes. And if you can pop the title of the last book that you read in there, then you stand a chance of winning. Of course, you have to be here live. So for those of you who are watching this later on via Zoom or YouTube, then I'm sorry, because I can't keep doing this for forever. I don't know where my time went, but apparently we've run out of time. I cannot thank you enough. I think I might need to get you back again next season, and we can talk some more. This has been so much fun. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Adam. You bring to the table such a wealth of knowledge and so many resources that our community desperately needs. And John popped in the chat how to get hold of today's guests directly. So if you've got questions, if you weren't able to join us live, but you're watching the replay, please reach out to them directly. They're an amazing font of knowledge, and I know that they will definitely be prepared to help you. So one last parting tidbit for our guests. Lynn, what was your parting thought?
My thought would be, it's always, if we have an opportunity, to be proactive versus reactive, right? Again, that leave with thinking about that piece of paper. If you've ever creased it, accidentally or not, and you're trying to increase it, it's much harder to try to increase it than prevent it from increasing as best as we can. So as much as we can be proactive, we should also add that into your toolbox.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lynn. Gail, last
Okay, I don't think we mentioned this, but very, very recent research tells us that listening to an audible book, listening to a story, it does activate the same part of the brain as reading it for yourself. So for anyone who has children who need to listen as opposed to, reading it for themselves, they are still benefiting just as much. So that makes a lot of us parents feel better when our child prefers to listen.
Beautiful, wonderful. And Adam, parting thought, please.
I would just say take the time to develop that routine with your child from a very young age, just to spend time together, whether it's going for a walk, watching a YouTube video, television program, listening to a podcast, reading a book, but take the time to be with them, reflect and talk, build that relationship from as young as you can get it started would be such a help for these kids.
Gold. Beautiful. Yeah. My goodness. So thank you, attendees, for zooming in with us and joining. And I look forward to seeing you all. In fact, actually, we're taking a hiatus for April because of spring break. So I will see you all in May. Okay, so thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, the amazing John Baum, who is fervently working in the background to ensure that we are live and that everything works, and without him, nothing actually works. So thank you so much, John. Enjoy your spring break, everybody. Get some rest. And remember, as Adam says, to make that quality time to read or do whatever it is. So thank you all so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you all on our next Crucial Conversations about Cognitive Diversity. Thanks so much.